Hello, good evening, everyone. Hello, Kevin. Welcome, James and Carla. And hello, Bhante. Thank you so much for sharing the Dharma this evening again. So, the subject tonight will be faith in the Buddha, which I hope we all have already. But if not, Bhante hopefully will inspire us and guide us in the right direction. Welcomes to Jens as well, and Geeta and Sally. So we will be chanting first. So let me actually give you the link for the chanting.
We'll be chanting the Ratana Sutta as we have been lately. So we'll be dedicating this merit to an end to the pandemic. So for people to be healthy, to recover from their illness, and for the pandemic to fade away. Also, particularly dedicating blessings to Elaine's daughter, Abigail, and her granddaughter, Isla. So Isla was just born today, and both Abigail and Isla are in the hospital having some difficulties. So if we could wish for them to have a speedy and complete recovery, so may they swiftly gain full health. So please chant together with the Ratana Sutta and dedicate your well-wishing to Abigail, Isla, and to all those affected by the coronavirus. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Yanidha bhutani samagatani bhummani vayani vantareke. Sabeva bhuta sumana bhavantu atopi sakacha sunantu basitam. Tasmahi bhutani sameta sabbe metam karota manusiya pajaya. Divacharato chaharanti evaling tasmahi nerakata apamata. Yang kinchilitam vidhavahuram vasage suvayam ratanam panitam. Nano samam atitathagatena idampi buddhe ratanam panitam. Etena sachena suvati hotu. Kayam viragam amatam panitam yadanjagasa kyamuni samahito. Natena dhammena samati kinchi idampi dhamme ratanam panitam. Etena sachena suvati hotu. Yang Buddha seto varivanai suching samadhimanandari kanyamahu. Samadhinatena samona vijati dampi dhamme ratanam panitam. Etena sachena suvati hotu. Ye bungala tasatam pasata chatari dani yugani honti. Te dakineya sugata sasavaka te sudinani mahapalani. Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu. Yesu payutta manasa dalhena nikamino gotamasasanam hi. Te patipata amatam vigaya landamudanim buddhim bunjamanam. Idampi sanghe ratanam manitam etena sachena suvati hotu. Yatinna kilo patavimsito siya chatubhivate biyasampakampiyo. Tatupamang samburisam vadami yo arya satchani avechapasati. Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu. Ye arya satchani vibhavayanti gambhira vanyena sudesitani. Kinchapi te ondi busapamata na te bhavang athamang adiyanti. Vidampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu. Sahava sadasana sampadaya daya sudhamma dahita bhavanti. Sakaya diti vichike chitancha silambatam vapi adati kinchi. Chatuhapaye cha vipamuto cha chavitanani avambokatum. Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu. Kinchapi sokham mankaroti papakam kayena vacha urachetasava. Avambo sodha sapatichadaya avambataditapada savutam. Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu. Vanapagumbe yatha pusitange gimmanamase patamasmin gimhe. Tatupamang dhammavaram adesayi nibbanagaming paramam hidayam. Idampi buddhe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu. Varo varanyo varado varaharo anutaro dhammavaram adesayi. Idampi buddhe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu. Kinam puranam navam nati sambhavam virata citta yatike bhavasmin. Te kina bija viruhin chanda nirbanti dira yatayam paripo. Idampi sanghe ratanam panitam etena sachena suvati hotu. Yani dhabodhani samagatani bummani vayani vantaleke. Tathagatam devamanusapujitam buddham namassama suvati hotu. Yani dhabodhani samagatani bummani vayani vantareke. Tathagatam devamanusapujitam dhammam namassama suvati hotu. Yani da bhutani samagatani bhummani vayani vantaleke Tathagatam devamanusapujitam sangham namasamasubhati hotu Etena sacha vanjena dukkhamupasamentu te Etena sacha vanjena bhayamupasamentu te Etena sacha vanjena rogamupasamentu te. Okay, please get in meditation posture. So that means sitting upright with your left foot up on your left thigh and your right foot up on your right thigh, with the heels touching your abdomen and the toes overlapping the outer edge of your thighs. Ayasoma is rolling her eyes, which is not part of standard meditation posture. So normally you either keep your eyes closed or pointed down at the ground about 1 meter in front of you. So please go ahead and get in a nice, stable, full lotus position, sitting up straight. One thing which helps at the beginning is to inch your knees forward about 1 or 2 inches. This helps to pull your pelvis forward a little bit. Tilt your pelvis forward a little bit, which helps to keep the spine erect. Then swing your shoulders up and back and let them relax down your back so that your torso feels open and spacious. Make sure your head is not tilted backwards or forwards, that it's nice and level. Bring your hands together in your lap with the thumbs lightly touching. If you're not sitting full lotus for some unknown reason, then you might find that your hands droop down, in which case you can stack a blanket or a cushion in your lap to elevate your hands a little bit. That will help keep you from slumping forward during the meditation. And it can help to remember that this is the posture the Buddha was sitting in when he attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. So just by sitting in this way, we already have an immediate direct connection with the Buddha's enlightenment. Ayasoma is rolling her eyes again. So just by sitting in this posture, we already have a direct connection with the Buddha, a direct connection with the enlightenment of the Buddha. So feeling that sense of affinity, that sense of connection with the Buddha, and reminding that we are embarking upon the path which leads to awakening, the same path which Gautama Buddha followed, the same path which every Buddha before him followed, the same path which every future Buddha is currently following. So we're following in the footsteps of every Buddha from past, present, and future. There's nothing to fear on this path because it is the path of fearlessness. So remembering that there was an enlightened being on this planet, this world, Not so long ago. Not so long ago, there was a human being who, through his own extraordinary effort, developed the factors of awakening, developed the qualities of mind and heart, which lead to a direct realization of absolute reality, which leads to the highest pinnacle of compassion and wisdom. And we are the heirs to his Dhamma. We are the heirs to his teachings. We have inherited what he shared with us after his awakening, after he clearly saw full enlightenment, clearly experienced the true nature of reality and all its facets and details. He shared that path. He taught that path. And we have inherited it. We are the children of the Buddha, the heirs of the Buddha. Bringing up this sense of joy, joy in knowing that not so long ago there was a Buddha on this earth who shared the Dhamma that we still have, the Dhamma which countless people have followed, are following, and will follow, the Dhamma which countless people have achieved great benefit from, the Dhamma which countless people have reached awakening through. Recollecting the qualities of the Buddha. So he is the prosperous one, the one who has achieved the most wonderful wealth imaginable, the wealth of wisdom, of serenity. He is the worthy one because he is the most precious being. He has attained that which makes one truly worthy of honor, worthy of respect. He is the fully self-enlightened one. So through his own effort, he reached the highest pinnacle of wisdom. Through his own effort, he reached full enlightenment. His knowledge and his conduct are perfect, blameless. There is no fault to be found in anything the Buddha did or said. Every action he did was compassion. Every word he spoke was wisdom. There was no fault that could be found in anything he said or did. From the moment of his awakening until the moment he passed away, every moment was a good moment for him. So we call him the Sublime One, Sugato, the one whose path is pleasant, the one whose path is good, whose path is joyful. And he fully knew the world. He fully knew every aspect of the world in detail. He fully knew every aspect of all worlds because he saw clearly the basic principles that reality operates on. So he is the knower of the world, knower of all worlds, knower of the underlying principles behind all experience. He is the unsurpassed teacher of all beings who wish to be taught, of all those who can be taught. With perfect wisdom, perfect compassion, he sees that the best way to help beings is to guide them to awakening. And with perfect wisdom and compassion, he sees exactly what to be taught to each being, exactly what to be said, how to guide them so that they can make further progress. This is a manifestation of his perfect understanding of reality, understanding exactly where each one of us is on the path to awakening, exactly what next steps we need to take. He is the teacher not just of humans, but also of all spirits, angels, demigods. So no being in the universe is higher than the Buddha. No being in the universe has more wisdom than a Buddha. So even the Devas and Brahmas come to the Buddha for teachings. There's no one more sublime, no one more exalted, no one more advanced than a Buddha. He is awake. He has woken up from the dream the rest of us inhabit. He's woken up from the delusion that we've lived in for countless lifetimes. He woke from that dream and saw reality as it was. So we call him the Buddha, the awakened one. So keep joyfully reflecting on the qualities of the Buddha in this way. If there's one or two or three particular qualities that really resonate for you, you can focus on just those. Building up that sense of joy in being connected with the Buddha. Again, he is the prosperous one. He has reached that which is most valuable. He's the worthy one, the most respectable being imaginable, because he has attained awakening. He is fully self-enlightened. He attained awakening through his own effort. His knowledge and conduct are impeccable, blameless, perfect. Perfect manifestation of wisdom and compassion in everything he says and does. Because that's the nature of an enlightened being. Infinite blameless wisdom, infinite blameless compassion, manifesting in every choice, every action. And every moment of his life is perfect, joyful, blissful, because nothing can disturb a Buddha's mind, because a Buddha's mind is completely pure, purged of all reactivity and negativity. So nothing can disturb the sublime bliss of a Buddha. He is the world knower. He clearly knows how the world operates. He clearly knows how karma works, how rebirth works, how the path to awakening works. He's the unsurpassable teacher of those who can be taught, because he knows exactly where we are on the path, because he's been here before. There is no one a Buddha does not understand. Not even the devas and the brahmas, the spirits and the angels and the demigods, not even them surpass a Buddha in wisdom, in purity. So even the gods come to the Buddha for teaching. Even the gods are the students of the Buddha. And he has woken up from the dream of illusory experience, of delusional experience. He's woken up from that dream into reality as it truly is, without distortion or bias. Keep reflecting on the qualities of the Buddha in this way. As you recollect the Buddha, focusing on the Buddha. If you notice the mind converging into samadhi, just let it converge into samadhi. Letting discursiveness fall away and the mind unify into silence and clarity. You can relax your posture. Rest for a moment in the peacefulness of the mind. Okay.
Thank you so much, Bhante, for guiding us in that beautiful meditation. Apparently, also Gabriella got a little bit scared with the gong, with the bell. Yes, the bell this evening made a funny sound. Also, Kevin is remarking.
Well, it's also,
And James says that bell hit and I jumped 10 feet.
and in all fairness, this isn't the best bell. We have a much nicer one in our meditation hall. So you get second best for these sessions.
And Maria says, me too.
Let's see though. It's possible to ring it a bit more nicely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
better. I think there's an angle to it that gets, yes, James is approving.
Well, the really important thing actually is holding the striker very loosely. If you hold the striker tightly, then it makes this really awful, like,
Yeah.
thunking sound. But you hold it loosely and just kind of let it bounce off the bell, then you get a very nice sound. So the striker has to be able to bounce off the bell of its own accord. If you hit the bell, bad sound. Bounce, good sound. Anyway.
Great. So now we have a little lesson of how to strike a bell, or invite a bell, as they say in the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition.
I prefer hit the bell, personally. So we can invite the bell by hitting it with the striker.
All right. Well, thank you, Bhante, for teaching us how to hit the bell. And welcome to some other friends. Welcome to Geeta and Sally and Cam and Stacy, Julia, and Elaine, who is at the intensive care at McMaster University Hospital.
Mm.
We hope that everything well with Abigail and the little one. And hello, Edward. And all right.
Okay. So I have to say, Elaine, I'm really impressed that you're still joining in even from the hospital. So that's quite some dedication. Yeah, so I hope that your daughter and your granddaughter come through this all right. So this evening, the topic is faith. And this is one topic which I feel it often gets overlooked or neglected in discourse about Western Buddhism. So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about faith this evening was because I do feel that as one reads through the suttas, it becomes clear that this is a very important quality of the path. It's something that the Buddha spoke about in many, many places. Yet, because it doesn't get spoken about very much in Western Buddhism, it's something which is commonly brushed aside, or it's commonly dismissed. In fact, you'll often hear people saying things like, Buddhism is not a faith-based religion. Buddhism is not a faith tradition. Faith is not an element of Buddhism. Buddhism is a rational scientific system which is not based on belief. You'll hear people say these sorts of things. And what they're saying is it's not necessarily wrong, but rather it's incomplete. Rather, what I would say is that in the beginning of one's practice, in the very beginning, naturally one is not going to have very much faith. In fact, one might not have any faith at all. And that's fine. What's necessary in the beginning is simply a willingness to try things out. That's all that's really necessary in order to get started in Buddhist practice, is the willingness to experiment, the willingness to try on some of the things the Buddha said and see how it goes. So in the beginning, you don't necessarily need much in the way of faith. You basically just need a willingness to try things out, a willingness to experiment and see what happens in your own experience. And that's a great starting point. But that's all it is it's a starting point. So, for example, before I got into Buddhism, I described myself as an agnostic. So agnostic literally means one who does not know. So Gnostic, by the way, is related to the Pali word jnana, which means knowing. They come from the same root. So as with so many Greek and Latin words, they are directly related to Pali and Sanskrit words. And as for who came first, well, bad news for the Europeans. Pali and Sanskrit came first. Oops, I said it. Yeah, I said it. Anyway, long-standing debate among historians and completely beside the point. But again, I define myself as an agnostic because I felt that I didn't know much of anything about how the universe operates. So therefore, it wasn't right for me to say what was true or what wasn't true. And that's a perfectly reasonable state of mind to be in. So again, one normally begins one's Buddhist practice without much in the way of faith. Unless you've been raised in a Buddhist family, in a Buddhist culture, and then often you're instilled with faith from the time you're very, very young. Or if you already had some strong connection with Buddhism from a past life, and therefore you have a natural sense of trust and confidence when you encounter Buddhism in this life. That also can happen. So once again, when we come to the subject of faith, we can talk about a few different kinds of faith. So first is the faith which is carried over from past lives, as I mentioned, which some people have. Next is the faith which is embedded through one's upbringing, through one's family, through one's culture, which many people have. And these first two kinds of faith are not to be dismissed. They're not to be rejected. So again, a lot of Western Buddhists reject these kinds of faith as childish or silly or insincere. But that's really missing the transformative power which these kinds of faith have. So I'll talk more about that a little bit later on. Another kind of faith is the faith that comes through direct experience. So, for example, I can feel this body sitting here on this cushion. So from that, it's pretty reasonable for me to say that there's a body sitting here on this cushion. Though as one gets further into one's Buddhist practice, we start to realize that's not exactly true. But nonetheless, it's an experience that I'm having. Anyway, so faith through direct experience. A more poignant or direct example of this is when we recognize our dukkha, and we recognize that our dukkha is directly related to our desire. That when there is desire present, there is dukkha. When there is no desire present, there is no dukkha. Then we start to get faith in the Four Noble Truths coming from direct experience in seeing and feeling the Four Noble Truths, operating in our day-to-day life, our moment-to-moment life. So that's another example of faith through direct experience. And a fourth kind of faith is faith through inference. And this one is a little more complicated, it's a little more challenging, and it's also a little more dangerous. So faith through inference is where we can take something that we have faith in through the first three means, especially the third one, faith through direct experience. And based on that, we can come to a logical inference about things which we're not able to directly confirm through direct experience, or things which we don't currently have faith in through either inherent faith from past lives or through cultural upbringing and so on. Then we can take what we can confirm through experience, so what we do already have faith in, and we can extrapolate. What are the natural conclusions of this? So an example of this, so faith through logical inference, is recognizing causality operating throughout our life, every day, for as far back as we can remember. Then we can logically infer that causality operates over larger scales as well. For example, over the scale of multiple lives. So from seeing causality operating in one's day-to-day life, one can infer causality operating over the course of multiple lives. And therefore, one can have faith in karma and rebirth through logical inference based upon our faith arising from direct experience. So these are all elements of faith. And in particular, what I'm talking about in the case of the third and fourth, so faith through direct experience and faith through logical inference, is faith in the Dhamma. Whereas what one tends to get through the first two, so faith from past lives and faith from upbringing, tends to be faith in the Buddha. And these are very closely related, but they're not exactly the same. So I'd like to talk a little bit about different kinds of faith then in terms of the object. What is it that we have faith in? And what do we mean by having faith in that? So faith in the Buddha. Well, the standard way that it's defined in the suttas is two ways. One is Tathagata Bodhisattva. So Tathagata Bodhisattva. So faith in the awakening of the Tathagata. Faith that the Buddha was enlightened. And you might say that this is the foundational faith that runs through Buddhist practice. If we believe that the Buddha was fully enlightened, then we will take his instructions very seriously and we will practice them very intently. And we will respect them immensely and enormously. and we will follow the path as well as we can, or as well as we're willing to. And we will be very careful what we do and what we say about the Buddha. So Tathagata Bodhisattva, faith in the enlightenment of the Buddha. Slightly more elaborate form of faith in the Buddha is, and this is how it's most commonly defined in the suttas, is faith in the 9 qualities of the Buddha, which is what we were reflecting on during the meditation practice. So, recognizing the qualities of a Buddha, and this is not limited to Siddhartha Gautama, by the way, but rather it's the exact same qualities that are shared by every Buddha throughout space and time, past, present, and future, in every universe, in every world. Every single Buddha has exactly the same qualities, which are, again, the qualities that we went through in the meditation practice. So they have the highest wealth, which is perfect wisdom and compassion. They are Tipiso Bhagava Arahang, the worthy ones, the most respectable beings imaginable. Samasambuddho, fully self-enlightened. Vijacharana Sampano, they have perfect, blameless wisdom and compassion, wisdom and activity, knowledge and conduct. So everything that they say and do is completely blameless, manifesting wisdom and compassion through speech and action. Sugato, so everything they experience is blissful and pleasant. Their path through life is a pleasant one, a good one. And this is because their mind is completely pure, completely purified of all reactivity and negativity. Lokavidu, they fully understand how the world operates, the mechanics of the world. In particular, they fully understand karma, how our choices bring results, how everything fits together into a mutually dependent, causally interconnected whole. Anutto Prasadhammasarati, because they so clearly, deeply understand every aspect of the world, and because they have completely purified their own mind, therefore, Buddhas are the perfect teachers of those who can be trained. So if we're willing to be taught, if we're willing to understand and practice the Dhamma, then we can learn it from a Buddha, because a Buddha understands the reality clearly enough that they can explain it with perfect clarity. Satta Deva Manusanam. So once again, they're the teacher of both gods and humans. So we don't need to appeal to any higher power or higher authority. We can just rely directly on the teachings of the Buddha. Because even the angels and spirits and demigods go to the Buddha to be taught. So we have no need to go to these lesser beings. We can just go directly to the Buddha's teachings. Buddho Bhagavati, so Buddha, he's the awakened one. Again, he's fully awake to reality as it is, without any distortion. So this is, again, the most common way that faith in the Buddha is defined in the suttas. It's faith that the Buddha had these qualities, these 9 qualities. And it's faith that every Buddha has these 9 qualities, that these are the innate characteristics that make a Buddha who they are, that make a Buddha a Buddha. So faith that there was such a Buddha, faith that it's possible to be a Buddha, faith that Buddhahood is something which is achievable, faith that Buddhahood is an aspect of reality which any being can tap into. This also is a critical part for our practice, because it is recognizing that it is possible for us to follow the path to Buddhahood. It is possible for us to follow the path to awakening. It's not something which is only the quality of some unique being somewhere, but rather it is something which is accessible to every single one of us. Every single one of us can attain the same wisdom and compassion as the Buddha. Every single one of us can have the same perfect awakening, perfect enlightenment as the Buddha. So faith in these qualities of the Buddha then gives us the confidence that we need in order to practice sincerely. So if one does not have faith that enlightenment is possible and that the teachings are provided by a fully enlightened being who is a perfect teacher, why would we bother? Like, if I saw Buddhism as just some kind of psychological self-help to make me 10% happier, I wouldn't bother. I'd be often at the nightclub right now. Well, I mean, not right now because they're all locked down for quarantine. But assuming things weren't all locked down for quarantine, I'd probably be off popping pills at a dance party somewhere. I wouldn't be shaving my head and wearing robes and sitting in a monastery. I'm only doing this because I have genuine faith that this path leads to full enlightenment. Otherwise, there's no way in hell I would be here. Unthinkable. I'd be off recklessly pursuing sensuality like I was when I was a teenager. I mean, it kind of worked. The best I knew at the time. But this path that we commit to it because we have this deep faith that it leads to something more valuable than any other path in the human world leads to. It leads to something more valuable than any path in non-human worlds lead to as well. It leads to something more valuable than anything else imaginable throughout the universe, past, present, and future. Then we can commit fully to this path without hesitation, without holding back. That's faith in the Buddha, the qualities of the Buddha. And that's how it influences our practice. It's how it influences our ability to practice fully and wholeheartedly. As long as we doubt the Buddha's awakening, then our practice will always be half-hearted at best. As long as we doubt the accuracy and effectiveness of the Dhamma, then our practice will be half-hearted at best. So this quality of faith in Buddha and Dhamma is really, really critical. It's not to be lightly set aside. So the challenging thing is, if you don't already have it, how do you develop it? If you're not carrying this deep faith from a past life, if it wasn't instilled in you by the compassion of your parents, what are we going to do? How are we going to build it up? Well, then we have to rely on the third and fourth kinds of faith that I spoke about, which is faith coming through direct experience and faith coming through inference. So once again, it starts by being willing to give a good shot to the Buddha's teachings. Really give it a good go. It's like, yeah, I'm going to take these practices on and really try it out and see what happens. Yeah, I'm going to really examine what the Buddha taught and see if it lines up with my experience. See how it compares to what I go through. So really devoting some time and effort to understanding what the Buddha taught and to living in accordance with it for a while. And watch your mind, watch your heart, watch your experience, and see, are you getting the results that the Buddha spoke about? And I can say with utter confidence that you will. In fact, the mere fact that you're logging in and spending the time doing these sessions with us rather than binge watching Netflix or whatever it is people are doing these days, drinking yourself blind, beating your head against the wall. I don't know. I don't know what non-Buddhist people do. Probably all sorts of unpleasant things. So instead, you're logging into these Dharma sessions where you can do chanting and practice meditation and listen to the Buddha's teachings and reflect on them and discuss them. So you must already have embarked on this path of experimenting with the Buddha's teachings, of trying to live the Buddha's teachings and trying to see for ourselves the truth of the Buddha's words. So I encourage you, if that's the stage that you're at, practice wholeheartedly because that's how you'll get the fastest results and the deepest confidence as quickly as possible. Really throw yourself into the Buddha's practices. Take them on completely and sincerely and fully. And when skepticism arises, set it aside and practice wholeheartedly and see what comes from your practice. You can come back to your doubts later. Now is the time for experimentation, not for skepticism, not for doubting. And what you'll tend to find is that the more you practice and the more you study and the more you discuss and the more you learn, that the more your skepticism melts away. The more your doubt melts away and starts to be replaced with a bedrock confidence that the Buddha knew what he was talking about and that it applies just as well to us here and now today as it ever has and ever will. Then you can start to cultivate faith through inference. Once you have that solid, firm confidence in what we can directly see and feel through applying the Buddhist practices to our daily lives, then we can start to apply faith through inference for those things which are difficult to directly confirm in our daily experience. And in this way, our faith can grow to encompass more and more of the Buddha's teachings, until eventually we pass a certain critical breaking point. And for me, I don't know exactly when this was. I can't pin it down. I can't say that's the day. That's the day when my faith finally woke up to its full splendor. I don't know what day that was, but I can feel it now. I felt it for many, many, many years. But at some point, as you practice the Buddha's teachings fully, the full Noble Eightfold Path in all its details, not just doing some mindfulness-based stress reduction, that's not Buddhism, but the full Noble Eightfold Path, not the Noble Onefold Path, not the Noble Twofold Path, not the Noble Threefold Path, the Noble Eightfold Path. That's Eightfold Path. In detail, in all its qualities and factors. As you practice the Noble Eightfold Path in all its details and aspects, then you will start to recognize the Buddha knew what he was talking about. As you study the Dhamma, as you read the suttas, one of the most profound things that you can do to build faith in the Buddha is to read the suttas. All of them, cover to cover. But save the Digha for last. Advanced warning, special instruction for Westerners, save the Digha Nikaya for last. The long discourses of the Buddha, read it last. I can't emphasize this enough. Read it last. Otherwise, this might be counterproductive. It may weaken your faith rather than building it. Read everything else first. That usually helps a lot. So read the suttas, cover to cover, all of them. Deeply contemplate their meaning. Listen to or read explanations of the suttas by well-respected monastics. Deeply contemplate what the Buddha was talking about and look for it in your daily life. And at some point, as you do all these practices that I'm speaking about, at some point there will be a breakthrough where you realize that somewhere along the way, your faith in the Buddha, your faith in the Dhamma has become unshakable. At some point, you passed some threshold where it became absolutely clear to you that the Buddha was fully enlightened, and there was no possible way it could be anything else. And once you pass that threshold, your practice is never the same again. So I really encourage you, build your faith. Reflect on the qualities of the Buddha. Study the suttas. Practice the Noble Eightfold Path in its entirety, in its completion. Build that quality of faith. Practice as though you already have it. And one day you'll realize you actually do. So I could keep going on this subject for quite a while. In fact, I could get quite mystical and metaphysical about it, which would be loads of fun, but it might be exceeding the scope of what we're doing tonight. So at this time, I think we can go ahead and open up for questions or comments or possibly insults and criticism, depending on whether any secularists logged in tonight. So if we could go ahead and type whatever you like into the live chat, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So we actually have some fans of the Digha Nikaya. Gabriella and James love Digha Nikaya 31, 11, 16.
Yes, there's quite a number of suttas in the Digha Nikaya, which I'm also quite fond of. However, I recommend saving it for last because in my experience, most Westerners who start with the Digha Nikaya get a little turned off by it. Whereas if they start with the Majjhima Nikaya or the Samyutta Nikaya or the Anguttara Nikaya, they tend to have a much better experience. That's just what I've observed over the years. And that was also my own experience for that matter. I was never a fan of the Digha Nikaya until after I was deeply familiar with all the other three main Nikayas. Then I went back and I looked at the Digha and I was able to appreciate it much better. But I also acknowledge that's not everyone's experience. About once every 5 years or so, I meet a Westerner who likes the Digha Nikaya more than the others. And it always comes as a surprise to me. And I still don't quite understand why. But there are some people who something about the Digha Nikaya just really touches them. Again, it's not my experience, and it's not the experience of most Western convert Buddhists that I know of, but it is the experience of some.
And we have 2 Yelp reviews for the suttas and faith. So James says, goodness, faith brought me here. Digha Nikaya 16 converted me in tears, reading him die, and it just struck me with awe. His final words made me firm in the triple gem.
Oh, that's really lovely.
Mm-hmm. And Gabriella says, committing all my energy to put them into practice made my happiness go from almost nothing to great happiness, even in difficult times when my body is hemorrhaging. 10/10 confirmed bliss. Very good Yelp review. And Mariel asks, you mentioned during the meditation that the gods ask for advice to the Buddha. Do you mean they ask for advice to any or all Buddhas? No, to any / all Buddhas, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she also asks, it might be silly, but I have faith on the Buddha and I like to see him as a very good friend and guide, but I'm not as interested to reach enlightenment. It seems interesting, but there is so much to be done before. For now, it is enough for me to become conscious of my karma and breath.
Yeah, that's how it starts. But as you progress along the path, eventually you start to realize that your other worldly goals are actually not so significant anymore. They start to lose their appeal. That's one of the similes that the Buddha gives in the suttas is it's like a child who plays with toys. But as the child grows up, eventually they start to lose interest in their toys because they realize that they're just toys. They're not of any significance. They're not of any importance. They're not of any value. They lose interest in them. So it's the same. As our practice develops, eventually we start to lose interest in our worldly possessions, our worldly aspirations, our worldly intentions, because we just realize they're childish. They're like toys. They're not really significant. My preceptor said it's like trading candy for gold. Okay.
And Gabriella asks, what is that experience you both had that confirmed for you that the path was absolutely life-altering enough to confirm for you the pursuit of Nibbana is in ordaining? Did you understand?
Well, in my case, this was like 15 years ago. So I'm having a bit of a hard time pulling up anything close to details. And also, I'm not really sure it was a single moment. Um, I mean, there must have been a threshold I crossed at some point, but for me, it was more of a gradual buildup. But it was a gradual buildup that happened very quickly. Um, so it was over the course of 2 years, from when I started practicing to when I was resolved on being a monk. So it was very quick. But yeah, I can't pin down a single moment when it happened. It was more just as I got into Buddhist practice and got deeper and deeper into it, then just naturally everything else started to seem silly, pointless, meaningless, hollow. And the path to enlightenment seemed like the most delightful, wonderful, magnificent thing I could imagine. So naturally, monastic life being a system set up to give one the best conditions for attaining enlightenment, naturally it seemed like the right choice. Okay.
And
Ayasoma, I think that includes you.
yes, I'll keep it short, or I'll try anyway. Taking precepts for me has been the experience that the gradual experience that actually made me more and more faithful in the path and the importance of the form in which the Buddha set up this path, and how the more I was practicing it in a sort of traditional form, the more I was seeing, attaining the results that he was predicting. He was saying that I was going to sort of reap, namely less and less suffering, namely shedding suffering. So not acquiring anything, but shedding a lot of dukkha. So then I was like, then at a certain point, I was already living in a sort of semi-monastic life. So I just decided to make it official. Is that short enough?
Yeah, wow, that was impressive.
Improving.
Yeah.
Right. And Gita says, Bhante, also according to the sutra, once you enter the stream, your faith faculty becomes unshakable.
Yeah.
Correct. And oops, I scrolled a little bit too far. Gabriela says, if I was stuck on a desert island and could choose only one Nikaya, which one would you choose? I would choose the Samyutta Nikaya. Which one would you choose?
I'm actually inclined also to pick the Samyutta Nikaya because it has the Kachanagota Sutta. I do quite like the Majjhima Nikaya, but the Samyutta, yeah, I'd probably have to go with the Samyutta Nikaya. Yeah.
Majjhima Nikaya. And Sally says, this morning Bhante said, make aspiration and resolution to encounter triple gems in future lives. I examined why I don't have confidence. I thought even I make aspiration. Now in future they might be voided due to anicca. Am I having wrong understanding of anicca? Anicca means the aspiration is not permanent, but doesn't mean it will be voidness, right? Thank you for clarifying this wrong view that has confused me for several years.
Well, of course, everything is impermanent and insubstantial, but within that, there is still causality. There is still cause and effect. There is still choice and result. So you make the conditions for something to happen, and then it will happen. So, yeah, everything is impermanent. That's true. Yet, the choices we make produce results. So, one of the ways that we ensure, or one of the ways that we help make it so that we'll continue encountering the Dhamma is by making the resolution to be close to the Dhamma, and by practicing in accordance with the Dhamma, as well as having that aspiration, that resolution. Okay.
Thank you. And Gabriella says, Bhante, I have read the Buddha Vamsa in Pali. Would you think that it would be beneficial to recall as many Buddhas that there were in the past and present, and to think of Metteya in the future?
If you like, if it helps you, yeah. I do sometimes think about all the different Buddhas. So all the Buddhas of the past, all the Buddhas in different universes in the present, and all the Buddhas that will arise in the future. Sometimes I think about that. And I can find that, sometimes I find that really helpful. Also thinking that there are other Buddhas currently alive right now in other universes. I find that quite nourishing at times. So yeah, recollection of the Buddha is not by any means limited to Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha. It's not limited by any means just to that one Buddha, but rather to all Buddhas, or as many as you wish to recollect. Yeah.
And Victor says, I have faith in the Buddha, but is it wrong for me to be skeptical with some story like Bodhisattva able to walk 7 steps after born? Do we have to have faith on legend? I believe in enlightenment.
So it is a little bit hard to tell, given that it has, after all, been 2,500 years. It's hard to be absolutely certain what details of the story of the Buddha, the Buddha's life, are preserved completely accurately, especially when you start getting into the commentarial and apocryphal literature. It gets a little bit murky, what definitely actually happened and what didn't. But it's also totally beside the point. The important thing is having faith in the 9 qualities of the Buddha, none of which is about lotuses growing under his feet when he walks or any of that. So yeah, if you find yourself skeptical about the baby Bodhisattva taking 7 steps and lotuses growing up to receive his feet and all that, well, that's fine. Just set it aside, because it's not central to what makes a Buddha. So it doesn't matter. So I don't get hung up on that at all. It's not an issue for me. So there are some elements of the traditional stories about the Buddha which I find I don't really have much faith in. So one which I always found a bit strange was this idea that the baby Bodhisattva, the Buddha to be, emerged from the side of Queen Maya's abdomen. That strikes me as pretty strange. Personally, I suspect he probably came out the way that babies normally come out. But that's my own thoughts on the matter, and it's completely irrelevant because it has nothing to do with the nature of what a Buddha is. So long story short, I would say don't get hung up on these sorts of stories because they have nothing to do with the nature of a Buddha. However, things about the Buddha manifesting various psychic powers, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because that's part of his ability to know the world. And it's part of the characteristics of his completely pure and developed mind. Yeah, also the various miraculous stories which are described around the Buddha, they're also totally plausible. Yeah, these things could have happened. It's totally possible. So this is why I say set it aside, not reject it outright, because it might be true. Maybe the baby Bodhisattva did emerge from the side of Queen Maya's abdomen and take 7 steps on lotuses. It's possible. It might have happened. Or maybe it didn't. But either way, one's faith in the awakening of the Buddha and one's faith in the 9 qualities of the Buddha and of all Buddhas is untouched by that, because it's not directly related. Okay? So Ayasoma was making strange faces all through this, so I'm wondering what she thinks about this.
It's okay. If someone is interested, they can ask a book chat tomorrow.
Okay.
So Marielle says, but if you want to help others and you know you will nonetheless reach enlightenment someday, sometime, It makes more sense to help others now since enlightenment will come. I mean, we're in samsara. It's a circle in repeat. You might as well help a couple of people before getting out of the circle, no?
Yeah, definitely. Help a lot of people. It's great. Helping people is part of the path. And also recognize that the most help you can be for others is to attain awakening. Okay?
And Kevin is inviting people to practice dana. If you wish to donate to the monastery, you can go to buddhistinsights.com/donate. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And Gabriella and James seems to have a little combo on the. Apparently, Gabriella knows a lot of suttas by heart from the Majjhima Nikaya.
Cool.
Incredible, very impressive.
Back in the day, I had memorized a few dozen suttas in the Majjhima as well.
Wonderful.
But it's been a while. I probably couldn't recite them without brushing up a bit.
Okay, and Raj says, Bhante Ji, there are many protection suttas. Which one is the most important for lay people? What can a person can do tomorrow make it more effective?
Well, the most effective for you is the one that you feel the strongest connection to, the one that you feel the strongest affinity with, the one that helps you bring up the strongest feeling of devotion and joy. So it's going to be different from person to person. So I would encourage you to study a number of different protection chants, learn what they mean, chant them a few times, maybe find some nice recordings of monastics chanting them well, and find which ones really touch you deeply, and then spend some time with that one. Also, a lot of the power of the protection chant is around your state of mind while you're doing the chanting. So also making sure that you're building up a very pure and wholesome state of mind, a mind of compassion and the aspiration for awakening while you're doing the chanting. And that also will make it much more powerful, much more effective. Okay?
And Mark says, is there any special way I should work with friends who seem so far away from wanting the Dharma as I am?
You can't force people to the path. They have to come in their own way. So the main thing that we do is we just be a good person, display kindness and compassion and thoughtfulness, maintain mindfulness and equanimity at all times. And when they ask about what you're doing and why, then you can explain. But don't be too pushy about it. But explain what you do and why you do it. And if they're interested in learning more, then you can tell them more. If they're interested in learning about Buddhist practice, then you can tell them. But if you get pushy, it just tends to irritate people. It's not usually that effective. Okay.
And Sally is asking, we just experiment rather than think, overcome skepticism, right? Tonight's talk inspired me too. I always thought I have faith in Buddhism, but I actually have skepticism because I didn't have faith that resolution causes will produce faith result. As Bhante taught, I can try even just tomorrow to direct experience that resolution can deepen link into Dhamma.
Great. Yeah, keep it up. Also, I suspect your faith is stronger than you think. So look at it more closely. Yeah, keep building it up. Anything else?
Yes, Mark is asking, do you know of any Buddhas alive today or enlightened one alive today?
So Buddhas, by definition, come one at a time, and a new one doesn't come into being until the last one has been forgotten. So there can be other Buddhas in other universes right now, and in fact there are, but there can't be another one in this universe until the current Buddha is completely forgotten. So Shakyamuni Buddha from 2,500 years ago, we still remember him. So there won't be another Buddha for a while. But there can be Buddhas in other universes right now. And in fact, there certainly are. As for enlightened beings, yes. So those we would simply call arhants, which means worthy one, or anubuddha, which means someone who has woken up following another Buddha. And yeah, such beings can be found in this world now, but they're very rare. Very rare. And they're hard to find. Yeah. This path is long and difficult. So it's hard to find people who have completed it. But you can find them.
And Victor says, thank you. Means we have to focus with what important is to try to get to the stream entry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Sally has last question. So just to confirm with Bhante, the meaning of anicca is everything is not permanent, forever, fixed, unchangeable, right? It doesn't mean things happen randomly, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And Kevin says, as a Christian for much of my life, faith was a big part. This was helpful when I found the Dharma about 10 years ago. So the quality of faith is much stronger via Buddhism because it's not blind.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's all for tonight, unless... there you go. Mark is asking, could you please briefly explain what stream entry is?
Stream entry is the first stage of awakening. Okay, that was brief.
And Raj says, Bhante Ji, can we find any Arahant Bhante or being still in human world?
Yeah, there's a few monks I know of who are rumored to be arhants. Whether they are or not is not for me to say. But there's certainly some who are rumored to be.
And Sally has another question, because I got the imprint that near the death moment, we don't know what karma will ripe. Is this something randomly?
It all goes according to cause and effect. It's just that the workings of cause and effect in karma is much more complex than we can easily understand to that level of detail. I wouldn't worry about it. Just focus on creating good conditions, good causes, and good results will come. You don't need to worry about exactly when and exactly how.
As Gabriella says, causality is still a factor, so nothing is sheer chance.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think now it's really it. So sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante, for tirelessly teaching. So we will be meeting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And we will be, as usual, it will be chanting, doing some chanting and meditation together. And then in the evening at 7:30 p.m., we will be meeting for monk chat. So you can come with your questions and Bhante and I will answer them. So bring questions tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. and it can be anything, in the realms of Buddhism or related to it that you would like to ask us. Okay, Gabriella says, monk chat is amazing. Another yellow review. Oh, James says, monk chat is the best internet series. And Victor says, monk chat, yes, 3 thumbs up. Great, we can put them as quotes like in the little flyer. All right, have a great rest of the night and see you tomorrow morning.